advisor, and we've got a very special guest here with us today from ShivaForSenate.com. We got the inventor of email, of course, has 4 degrees from MIT. It is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. Thank you so much for joining us, first of all, sir.
Hi, Josh. Hi, Tim. How are you guys? Great to be here.
Excellent. And we have a really good show for everyone here today. We got a lot to talk about. Obviously, the number one thing in the news is a coronavirus. Before we get into all of that, I want everyone to hit the like button below, check the links below, check our link below for www.shivaforsenate.com, as well as join our new newsletter at www.iamband.com and send in your super chats if you wish to ask Dr. Shiva a question today. We got about 40 minutes, so let's get right to this. Recently in the news, Dr. Shiva, we have seen Dr. Fauci basically leading the cause for the coronavirus, saying that there might be, shutdowns globally, but mostly in the United States until the last coronavirus case. The last case, what is that? Like 4 months apart, one person has a coronavirus. They're going to keep everything shut down. You've been very critical of Dr. Fauci, who, of course, has been in the news regarding different issues on health going back to the HIV epidemic in the 1980s. I wanted to hear your thoughts on why he's wrong and why he might be fear-mongering about the issue of the coronavirus in general.
Yeah, so Josh, it's a good question. So the first issue is the best way to answer this is go back to the science. And I think if everyone can take a deep breath and really understand the biological science here, what we actually know and how the immune system is known to work, then we can really understand the level of hyperbole that's been taking place. When I tweeted out, I think back on March 3rd or 9th, the fact that this entire thing will go down in history as one of the biggest fear-mongering hoaxes to manipulate economies, to smash dissent, and also to achieve mandated medicine. And I still stand by that. And the reason I can say that with confidence is because I'm a guy who's been studying health from an engineering systems perspective of biology for since I was probably a 14-year-old kid, because I've been doing full-time medical research since then. So why do I say that with confidence? First of all, let's just take a big step back. And what is the immune system? First of all, the thing is, it's a system. It's not just some simple model, it's not some reductionist model where there's like one little cell and the virus attacks and eats that cell and then you're dead, okay? Or it's not like the virus comes and attacks your tissues and then you die, okay? Or you start bleeding from inside or whatever or you get edema in the lungs. This is unfortunately, it's like we live in the dark ages. You have a bunch of MDs, most of them, unfortunately, that don't, they're victimized by a big pharma based medical school education that really doesn't teach them to think. It doesn't teach them to take an engineering systems approach to understanding the body. They're taught to triage the body like they would do someone coming in from war, find one problem. If they find 5 problems, they send them off to 5 different specialists. No one talks to each other, and there's no holistic understanding of the body. If you ever have the unfortunate situation of someone ever having to go into the hospital, you'll see this in real time. 5 different specialists, and you as a family member really don't know what's going on because none of them really know what's going on, okay? And if you sometimes have a fortune that piece it together, that's rare. That's why we have 440,000 medical errors that take place in the United States every year, okay? And we don't see a shutdown over that. We have close to 200,000 prescription errors that take place every year. We have 1.9 million hospitalizations due to adverse reactions from prescriptions. We don't have a shutdown over that. So what I'm telling you is the entire unearned respect that we give to medical professionals. I'm not talking about the surgeons or the anesthesiologists. Some of these guys are very skilled. I'm talking about the person who comes out of medical school and just knows if then else. If this, give this drug. If that, give this drug. And it's not their fault. These people are very well-meaning people. They basically been victimized. So now when you take an engineering systems approach to understanding the body, you understand that there's a very different way the body functions. Western medicine's approach was never based on taking a systems approach until only recently, starting around in 2003, with the advent of a field called systems biology. I happen to be one of the early graduates out of that field out of MIT. I considered one of the leaders in it. I just gave the distinguished lecture talk at the National Science Foundation on the modern science of the immune system. So there's not a lot of people who know the immune system because it is so complex and people just study pieces of it. I'm one of the few guys who looks at it architecturally and how the pieces connect. I don't know all of it, but what I can tell you is that when you look at the immune system and the history of understanding the immune system, you realize that the history of understanding the immune system, what brings us today, has been a history checkered with always trying to blame a germ or a virus, even for a non-infectious disease. Always trying to, they're called virus hunters. And why do they do that? Because by trying to blame one thing, you can centralize control of science, or you can centralize control of thinking. And that's what's happened with the NIH. The NIH and the organizations like CDC, but fundamentally the NIH, which Anthony Fauci really is a leader in, and along with Francis Collins, these guys essentially come from a legacy of medicine and research and innovation used to be done at the edges. There was a time before World War II, hobbyists did innovation, right? People, if you wanted to do really cool scientific research, you got funding from private sources, much more competitive, much more interesting. But what we have today in science and innovation is consolidation of power. That's why some of these people, they get really irked when they find out the facts that email was not invented by the military-industrial complex, that actually came from a 14-year-old kid who converted the interoffice mail system to the electronic version, named it email, and got the first copyright before he came to MIT. Because it busts this long-held narrative that we have to go kill people, and through war and through consolidation of science by a few people is where scientific knowledge emerges from. So this is sort of the essence everyone needs to understand. The entire foundations of how truth gets created or found is no longer very little. The people who do this, starting with the Mansfield Amendment of 1970, where science basically became much more of a factory to incent the oldest profession in many ways, academia, paid prostitutes were paid to come up with science. They're paid to play. So MIT gets $20 to $40 million in climate change, right? So yeah, I'll put anything saying that CO2 is the enemy, because that's where they get their funding. Many of the academics today are actually third or fourth rate scientists, but they are successful at how to wheedle and manipulate, no different than lawyers and lobbyists. So we've created a very different culture in science. So that's
actually something I wanted to ask you a little bit about, Dr. Shiva, is that we have this strange culture of stubbornness among the science community. There's a few people that are paid off behind closed doors, but largely it's stubbornness. It's not like everyone's evil and they're all working together. There's a lot of them that are, but
there's this great book that David Noble wrote many, many years ago. He was a history of science professor at MIT. And David was, very, very forthright, very, very honest. Where he would do things even at the detriment of his own quote unquote career, which most of these other pay to play people wouldn't. He wrote a very famous paper 2 weeks before his tenure was up at MIT, where he would get tenure. And he wrote a paper basically showing how MIT professors went to visit a Michigan mechanic who had actually developed the windshield wiper, the automatic wiper, which is control systems theory. And they established in the MIT control systems department, when it was really done by this guy who was a mechanic of 40 years. So the point I'm telling you is that innovation and science actually come from the edges. Email come from the edges. Mm-hmm. TV was created by a 14-year-old boy. Many, many things used to come from the edges, great innovations. And what's happened is we can't really think of any great innovations in the last 40 years or any great scientific breakthroughs because it's controlled by mediocre people. So they may not be evil people, but they're not the smartest people who are willing to risk their reputations on doing bold science anymore, because you don't, quote unquote, make it that way. And this is a feature that's occurred with science. And that's why it leads to a guy like an Anthony Fauci. And there's probably 50 other guys standing in line to take his position. It's a guy who knows how to wheedle. It's a guy who knows how to manipulate. It's a guy who knows how to do what's popular and wants to be popular. So if you look at his history, you're looking at a guy who was with Reagan, Bush 1, Bush 2, Clinton, Obama, and now Trump. So think about that. It's a guy who's always been able to survive. Left and right takes place with quote unquote Republicans and Democrats, and you still have Fauci. That means he consolidates incredible amount of power in terms of controlling academic science and academic research. So most of the university professors are not going to go against him. Most of the people in biological science won't. So this is not evil or not evil. It is evil to the extent that the end result of this will be subjugation of lots and lots of people to a science and a health model that is not in the interest of everyday people. But what it has done is you create a culture. You know, it's like a club, right? Everyone eventually says, Josh is not in the club anymore. And you basically get rid of him some way. It's more implicit, and that's even more lethal, because if it were explicit, you could do something about it right away. It's much more of an implicit organism that's been created. I hope that's making sense.
Absolutely. Well, it's something that has concerned me for a long time, this notion that if you don't go along with the mainstream scientific community 100% wholeheartedly, which is strange and ironic, you're then called a denier. And we've seen that for years with vaccines. We've seen that with climate change. We've seen that with anything that anyone might ask some questions about. Not that they're denying the principles of whatever the issue might be, but if you go slightly over the line and try to go into new realms and think outside the box, which is the basis of scientific thinking, then you're a denier. And I find that to be a very concerning notion.
It's actually more insidious than that, Josh. It's like they actually don't practice science. So take climate change, for example. Well, what is evidence? What is evidence? What's the definition of evidence?
That's a good question.
It's unambiguous predictions. Unambiguous predictions. That means that it's not like one day F equals ma if mass times acceleration predicts a particular force, and another day ma predicts a different force. You follow what I'm saying? F equals g times m1 times m2 over r squared is a mathematical law. We have not seen a change. That's why we call it a law. So it's unambiguous evidence. They don't even practice science. So let me give you an example. If you go read the IPCC report, actually go read it, which I've gone through. So let's practice science. What we're trying to model the environment, right? We're trying to model climate. Well, how do you model that? Well, to put it at a high level, you have two bodies, the Earth, which is the sun, which is around 6,000 degrees Kelvin, and you have the Earth, and you're trying to model the heat and radiation of the sun hitting the Earth. Around 340 watts per meter hit the Earth, 140 bounce off, and the other 200 watts per meter come in. And by the way, none of this is controversial. Everyone agrees with this. And the amount of radiation that comes to the Earth needs to be taken out for energy balance, that 200 watts per meter. Anyway, so this is done by assuming the Earth is around 15 degrees Celsius. Now, all of this is non-controversial. Now, how do you now start modeling that radiation and how we dissipate that 200 watts per meter? Well, you take two fluids, which are called the atmosphere and the ocean, two turbulent fluids, by the way, which we don't even have a solution per Navier-Stokes equation or even any turbulent fluid. So now you're trying to tell me you're going to model this very complex set of interactions, and then you're going to model how much ice sheets are going to melt off the Arctic. And if you read the IPCC report, remember, unambiguous evidence, unambiguous. So if you see one of the graphs and they have 40 different predictions, one prediction says 0% of the ice will be on the Arctic, and the other one says 100% will remain. And there's about 38 flavors in between. This is not evidence. It's not, so that means the models that they're using are wrong. They do not predict reality. It's totally bogus. Yet no one will say anything against this. And if you actually close these guys behind closed doors and talk to them, they'll say, yeah, but I'm not going to say anything because of the money. So what I'm trying to say is they aren't even practicing the scientific method. Right. And they get away with it because of the amount of money that's involved for the entire university academic establishment. So it's actually much more simpler than that. It's not like, oh, the guys are on the fringe. No, a guy like Dick Lindzen, who used to run the meteorology group at MIT, an esteemed professor, one of the youngest guys in the National Academy of Engineering. After I did my video, some of you may have seen, that went viral showing the entire Paris Accords. People haven't seen it, you should go to truthfreedomhealth.com. You may want to add that, Josh, truthfreedomhealth.com. That's a good website, has a bunch of videos. But I exposed the entire Paris Accords. Well, Dick Lindzen also wrote to Trump, and he said the US never should get into the Paris Accords. 140 professors wrote an attack letter on him. Now, this is one of the most smartest guys on the planet. truly an atmospheric physicist. By the way, there's no field called climate science. It's a bogus field. There's no field called climate science. What we're talking about is fluid mechanics and radiative physics. So what they've done is they've created fields, they've manufactured science. And the fact is, because we have so many people who don't study math anymore, who don't know how to solve engineering, they can easily get manipulated even on the left or the right to say, oh, there's fringe science. No, it's not even fringe. They're not practicing science. Okay, so when it comes to the immune system, a guy like Fauci is not practicing science.
Absolutely. And I want to remind everyone to check those links below. If you're just joining us, you should check out www.shivaforsenate.com. We are joined, of course, by Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, the inventor of email 4 Degrees from MIT. And, he's the person that should be at the forefront of the news, not Dr. Fauci right now. But of course, we know that there is an establishment push for control here, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But right now, I want to ask you, I know you're very much in demand, and it must be torture having to answer the same questions a million times over, but always new audiences to listen. I wanted to ask you about, there's many different forms of coronavirus out there. There's many different forms. What we're dealing with is novel coronavirus. And I don't know if the tests are right. I mean, I'm seeing all these test results everywhere, and there's evidence that they're calling people who have pneumonia, symptomatic of coronavirus, and then they're testing people for coronavirus, and in some cases, they're just testing positive for different kinds of coronavirus, and they're including those into the numbers. I mean, what do you think about the numbers we're witnessing regarding coronavirus, and how many people actually have it?
Look, you can't, they're cooking the books. You can't really know what the numerator is or what the denominator is. Again, because of the money involved. Hospital administrators are making money off COVID-19 diagnosis. They're making money off the ventilators, a lot of money. So let's step back. Going back, there are many different types. First of all, we have 380 trillion viruses in our body, as I've mentioned. We have 60 trillion microbes. We have only 6 trillion cells. We're a walking germ factory, and we live in germs. We're like, a little goldfish in a pool of germs. So the first notion is, why are we getting so concerned about this virus, about this germ? Where is that coming from? And then how are they determining that someone is infected by this? Well, the World Health Organization is an organization that creates what are called diagnosis codes. So when you go to your doctor's office and they say you have this or this or this, those codes are owned and licensed by the World Health Organization. So they created 2 codes, one for COVID-19 and another code for COVID like random, okay? Anything sort of smelling, looking like COVID. So when people come in, they do a test, quote unquote a test, which also has false positives, and they say you have COVID-19. The other one is a much more iffy, very, very swampy diagnosed. Well, it looks like he's got chest pain. Oh, it looks like he's got some scarring of the lungs, whatever that is. And then you get put under that. So they've created 2 codes, which basically are very squishy. In fact, in the United States, the CDC, as I understand an email that I was shared with, wrote to hospital administrators and basically told them that put them both together. Don't worry if one goes in the other and the other comes to this. So you're talking about is we don't know what the numerator is. And we also know that a recent piece of data came out that pneumonia, which is we're in the flu season right now, let's not forget that, those levels had gone down proportionate to what was supposedly going up, okay? Mm-hmm. So you can see what's going on here. The essence of this discourse really should be, why is there so much fear? And why am I saying that it's fear-mongering? And what is the benefit here to blowing this up? But so we need to go back to science, just like with the climate change thing, right? Let's go back to the physics and the science here. The immune system is a very complex system. I just gave a talk at the National Science Foundation 4 months ago on it, their distinguished lecture. The other piece of this is that it is not your immune system that, it's not a virus that kills and attacks the organ systems, the tissue and the cellular systems in your body. It doesn't go do anything of that. Frankly, a virus is dead, okay? It's not a live creature like a bacteria. It comes in, it has certain chemical properties, and it does its thing and its goal is to replicate itself. And that's what a virus does. And the goal of your immune system in the normal mode is to detect it, attempt to take certain actions with what's called your innate immune system, then your interferon system, your microbiome's involved, and then your adaptive, which creates what's called an antibody. And all of this is connected to your neural system, your brain and your gut brain. So it's a complex system, but the important thing, the key thing everyone needs to awaken from to overcome this fear mongering is that it is not the virus that goes and attacks you. It is your own body that attacks itself. Okay? So let's just think about that. It's not like a monster is coming in your house and starts pillaging your house. It's like you are supposed to have certain ways. Your alarm system's supposed to turn it away. Maybe you have some lasers which shoot it away in the first thing, and then maybe you have a bat, and then you try to knock it out, and then maybe you have some guns and all this, right? Imagine all those systems fail, and all you have is a machine gun. You're going to start shooting everywhere. You may even start shooting some of people in your home because now you're freaked out. Oh my God, my alarm system didn't work. Out of your own reckless fear, you start going crazy and you start shooting everything. That is what occurs here when people's immune systems are compromised, when their innate system is not working properly because they've destroyed your macrophages with high sugar diets or your T cells with high sugar diets, for example. Now all you have left fundamentally is your cytokines, which are a very small part, and your gut microbe is also destroyed because you've been eating crap, or you get old and you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, or your thyroid's not working well, you don't have enough vitamin A. Well, right. What you have left is you have this one machine gun, this crazy machine gun called your TNF alphas and your IL-1 betas that just start firing everywhere. Well, they not only fire at the proteins that virus leaves behind, but they also go fire where those proteins are. In the case of the coronavirus, it goes to their lung epithelial. So you have this thing that everyone's heard the word called the cytokine storm. And so what's happening is when that storm is occurring, it's basically going and shredding everything. Just think about a crazy person in a shootout, so it starts shooting everything. Well, it's shooting holes here, holes there. Your endothelium starts leaking into your epithelial, right, of your lungs. You have fluid buildup taking place. That's what happens in the worst case. Now, if your body is properly fed with the proper, at least the basic nutrients of vitamin D, vitamin A, you can add in zinc, but I'm going to talk about DNA. Vitamin D is antimicrobial. That's why you're in Mexico, you said there, and you got nothing happening to you, okay? Because you have a lot of sun out there. That's why in Africa, nothing's happening. People have a lot of vitamin D. That's why bums, homeless people out on the streets, it's not really affecting them because they were out a lot and they've toked up on their vitamin D. However,
and it's interesting because you're seeing all across the United States in places like San Diego, they're giving people $1,000 fines for sitting on the beach and watching the sunset. I mean, talk about obstructing the cure, or in some places banning the sale of alcohol. And I mean, I'm not saying alcohol is like a great thing for your immune system, but a small shot of rum can't be bad for killing a virus.
Well, it's not only that, it's also the fact, the other piece is when you socially disconnect people. Amazing couple of landmark studies were in 1988, and another wonderful study by Stephen Cole, which shows that when you socially disconnect people and people feel socially isolated, the detriment of that is worse than obesity, pre-existing condition, worse than smoking, right? And worse than high blood pressure. In fact, the work by Cole basically showed that the effects of social isolation, wonderful set of experiments, actually at the molecular genetic expression level, downregulate antiviral proteins and upregulate pro-inflammatory proteins. Wow. This is like you're furthering a cytokine storm. So you have, frankly, an idiot. That's what Fauci is, or an evil person. He's an idiot or an evil person who either doesn't understand the immune system, which I believe he may or may not, and he has built up his entire shtick through promoting fake science, as though the immune system can get damaged, destroyed by a virus, okay?
Right.
When the reality is it's a dysfunctional immune system, which actually causes your body to attack itself. This is not in the national discourse at all, but it's entirely the discourse is the boogeyman, the virus, the virus, the virus. Flatten the curve, flatten the curve, flatten the curve, social distancing. social distancing, and the savior is going to be vaccines brought to you by the, messiahs of Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, and Clinton,
and see,
CDC, etc.
This is what drives me the most crazy is like the word of mouth. People hear something on the news, they repeat it: stay home, flatten the curve, and all those kinds of buzzwords and phrases that we hear.
We should really talk about that. So just think about how that phenomenon takes place. Someone is sitting at home who has not studied biology, who has not studied engineering, who does not understand mathematics, and they're watching some idiot called Anderson Cooper, who's this former CIA operative, right?
Yep.
Literally, right?
Yep.
They're watching some other foolish guy called Sanjay Gupta, who frankly never learned the immune system. And then they have another guy who has no training, Bill Gates, in an interview. One guy has monetary interests. One guy, nice guy, he's a good triathlete probably, Sanjay Gupta. I mean, I've spoken to him. And the other guy is a fool, okay? So you have three people who are unqualified, talking heads, manipulating millions of people, none of them talking about the immune system and how to boost it. None of them talking about pre-existing conditions.
Well, I just saw Chris Cuomo, sorry to interrupt, but I just saw Chris Cuomo on CNN the other day. Of course, he allegedly had novel coronavirus. And during an interview, he's saying to Gupta that all this stuff about taking vitamin C is nonsense. And Sanjay Gupta was nodding his head. I'm thinking, well, how is that nonsense? Vitamin C is one of the greatest vitamins you can take. I mean, you don't have to be an expert to know that vitamin C is great for you.
Maybe I need to go after all those guys now, because this is, I think I've destroyed Fauci with a lot of the stuff we did. We did the Fire Fauci. I think nearly 50,000 people signed our petition, by the way. Nearly 700 MDs all over the world. So we know, so it's probably, I think I need to do that for the service to humanity, which is really to talk about these characters who fundamentally do not have any training in this. You ask them, do you know what cathelicidins are? Sanjay Gupta will not know what I'm talking about, neither will Bill Gates. So you have people who are wired, and by the way, they all screw each other. They all hang out at the same parties. These people are an incestuous clan.
And they're all involved in Event 201, weirdly enough, but
what's that?
Sorry, go on. They were all involved in Event 201, strangely enough, most of them. So,
I think the important thing people need to understand and get confident about on the science is that your immune system, we live in a sea of germs. So the issue is, what do you do to support your immune system? And by the way, everyone has a different genetics. Everyone has a different epigenetics. We all have different tolerances. If I was brought up by my parents, unfortunately, in a completely clean environment and never was able to play outside, I probably have to be careful how I introduce myself to new allergens and strengthen it versus someone like me who grew up in dirt and mud and those kind of things, right? I can withstand a lot more. So the issue here is, what do we do to strengthen the immune system? That should be the central question. And if we look at things from that vantage point, everything starts becoming very, very easy to understand, and we overcome the fear. So and you come up with solutions like the one I wrote to President Trump on. The solution is to take all our healthy people, give them a couple of layers of protection if you're concerned. Give them vitamin A, give them vitamin D, make sure their thyroid's working well, make sure their subsystems are working well. Step one. Right. Second is you take the immunocompromised people. Now, for those people, they're talking about prophylactics like hydroxychloroquine. And if you're going to take it, you should take it with zinc, but it does have side effects. Obviously, Fauci doesn't like this because he has his grander plan, which is vaccine mandates. But the pharma guys around Trump are looking to make a quick buck quickly, so they're fine with it. But not equally, even better with less side effects is high-dose vitamin D and high-dose vitamin A. Why? Vitamin D is an antimicrobial. Vitamin A literally builds walls and protects your cells. And this is, again, basic biology, which most MDs do not learn. They don't know this.
Right.
And so those are the two solutions for protecting the people who are immunocompromised, as well as everyday people. Now, what's absolutely insane is the critically ill. The critically ill whose bodies are damaged, they've had pre-existing conditions. What are they doing with them? They're throwing them in a room, socially isolating them from their sedating them. Their parents, their kids can't see them. So now the kids are socially isolated, scared. Their immune systems are probably going downhill, right? They're probably wondering, oh my God, did I get corona? And we know that their antiviral, because of purely the social isolation, is being affected. So that's what you have going on. You have that phenomenon taking place right now. You have people being abused. If people being abused and people being made money off of, the ventilators are making money for the hospitals, the COVID diagnosis is making, and you have a guy sitting on a ventilator and we're shredding his lungs up. Instead of recognizing that if you have a bag of fluid, if you have a balloon and you put half of it fluid and now you're going to pump it up with air, it's going to blow it up because you have less volume, higher pressure. The solution is we need to eliminate that edema. Why do you have that edema? Because you have a cytokine storm taking place. Why do you have the cytokine storm taking place? Or what's causing that? You have lots of reactive oxygen species. You have inflammation taking place. The virus is replicating. Well, high dose. It can't be little like 1 milligram or 1,000.
Right.
You have to go to 15 to 20 grams every 6 hours. You have to hit that sucker really hard. And what I'm talking about is everything I'm saying here has been tested, proven. People have used it in critical conditions over and over and over again. Like the video I did yesterday, I talked about it. The Journal of the American Medicine, who's pro big pharma, even admits it reduces, ICU stays. So anyone listening out here should basically be really pissed off that we're literally sending people to their death sentence. So if you have someone who's going into getting a ventilator, you should probably tell them or their families, you better put them on IV vitamin C ASAP. Because you're sending them to basically an 80%, 90% death sentence.
Right. Now, we only have about 10 minutes left with you. If you're just joining us, everyone, hit that like button. Check those links below. Of course, we are joined by Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. Everyone should go and check out www.shiva4senate.com. That's the number 4. We are going to be going into overdrive after Dr. Shiva is gone and taking some questions from the audience. But for now, I wanted to go into an issue that isn't necessarily health related, but is related to this issue very much so, that a lot of people are concerned about. We see mass surveillance coming out of this. We see a global depression coming out of this. Bill Gates himself said the other day that the virus will likely kill a lot less people than the shutdowns, but he likes the idea of the shutdowns. He thinks it's a good thing, it'll stop the virus, because millions might die through poverty, starvation. I mean, we're looking at possibly as many as 1 billion jobs lost worldwide out of this, at least for a period of time, which is unprecedented by all models. I can't even consider any point in time where anything like this has ever happened. So I wanted to ask you, we have Google, you created the email, you invented the email. We have Google talking about just completely taking everyone's data and giving it out. They used to sell it to China. Now they're just giving it out for free, basically. We have massive surveillance on people. We have government agents checking people's shopping carts for essentials, which doesn't include seeds and anything that's self-sustainable, by the way. I wanted to ask you about where you think this is going. What is the agenda here long-term, outside of just vaccinations, which obviously is a big part of it? It seems as though this is just being used as an order out of chaos kind of a situation where the government's grabbing control left and right.
Look, one of the things we need to see is the long march of human history through all different ages has always been freedom versus slavery. Always. And you can see it in modern times, you can see it in historic times. It's always been that struggle. And one part of that struggle has been for a finite set of people to ensure the slaves don't uprise. And so how do you keep the slaves from uprising? Well, one model is you physically put them in shackles, right? So you physically put chains on them so they don't come after you. A second approach is you do that, and or you feed them very little food, right? You make sure they can barely survive to work on your farm and then go back and they're basically machinery that it fails. Okay, we kill them, go on to the next one. So the notion of slavery is part and parcel of what's been part of the human existence and the struggle of human beings to overcome that. It was not so long ago, and still we have people like Saudi Arabia, 300 years ago, we had the concept of an individual thought he had a direct connection to God Almighty, a king, and all of us were his or her subjects. This is real, okay? So just take your mind back 300, 400 years, and you're living in England or at some point in Imperial Rome. There are people, the emperor thought he was it, and and you were his subject, and you could be used, manipulated, destroyed, whatever ways. Just think about that. Just think about that. Now, fast forward it to a guy like Bill Gates a person like Chan Zuckerberg Foundation, or people like Hillary, that notion, that mutation in thinking, okay, still exists today. A finite set of people think they are better. Hollywood celebrities. This is this culture of celebrity. Academic elites. These people think they're actually better. And for me, this is a very sensitive topic because I grew up in India, which had a caste system. And to me, I take this very personally. And that's why when my parents came here to the United States, it was to leave that so we could at least have freedom to grow in a different way. So when I see a guy like freaking Gates, when I see a guy like freaking Fauci, when I see these people, when I see these celebrities, most of them are idiots, most of them do not have much talent. That's why they will whore themselves out, because they know that they never perfected their craft. That's why many of these academics will whore themselves out and the good scientists stay on the sidelines. But the reality we're seeing is that a finite set of people think they're better than you. They actually think they're better, and they believe that you're dirt and that you are basically an instrument in their big factory network. The Chinese Communist Party has this model, top down. And that is basically exporting the Chinese model to the United States, which is top down capitalism.
Well, and by the way, I'm sorry to cut in because you're perfectly going into what I wanted to ask you next about. And of course, we're talking about aristocracy by those that claim to be fighting aristocracy. It's perfect Orwellian doublespeak. But you mentioned China, and a lot of people are concerned about technocracy, global technocracy, and a massive power shift to China utilizing this crisis. I mean, facial recognition, we can look at things like social credit, cashless society.
Well,
this seems like...
You don't have to even go there. You can just look right here. China has 200 million cameras. The 5G technology, I'm not going to talk about the 5G, the electromagnetic stuff. You have to be careful about that because some of that could be used to distract the movement against big pharma. But what we can say about 5G, it is definitely for surveillance. It is definitely for Internet of Things to surveillance everything, every action, every moment to moment to moment. And why is this important? Because the fundamentals of all of this is controllability and observability. When an automatic pilot on a plane is working, it's observing everything, it's getting all the data, and based on that data, it gives an input to control that airplane to achieve its goal. So the goal here is to make all the 7.2 billion people on the planet observable and controllable, to achieve a goal of maximizing infinite profit, power, and control. That's what this is about. And if people want to understand that better, you just need to look at the enormous effect that's taken place since 9/11, right? The enormous effect in terms of controlling people's movement, privacy, etc. And this, in some ways, is the last onslaught that the global elites are hoping to use. Nothing better than a virus, the pandemic. And you can see right when the coronavirus was occurring, it was no coincidence. You had 6 months before massive dissension taking place all across the globe, be it in Venezuela, be it in France, be it in Hong Kong, be it in Wuhan. You had the election of two populist leaders, Donald Trump, Narendra Modi in India, a massive re-election. So the global elites do not want a bottoms-up populist existence. They want it to be top-down. And that's what this is about. This is about imposing will top-down. God knows how many of those people in China, so-called people, were dying, and there's 25 million cell phones removed, were dissenters of people fighting in Hong Kong or people fighting these anti-pollution protests in Hong Kong. So none of that is talked about. So your point is, this is to create a state, a top-down state, where we are all factory workers. Forget even AI. The goal is even you can use carbon-based beings to be automatons. So as I've shared, the goal is you use this thing based on fake science in order, through fear mongering, to support a fake solution with big pharma. And the end goal is control, control, control. That is the end goal. And the way out of this is essentially to recognize that we need to learn some science. We need to understand that the body's immune system is far stronger. And there's been a history of the medical establishment always blaming a poor little virus. Scurvy. Oh, it must be a virus. No, it was vitamin C. Pellagra. Oh, it must be a virus communicated by immigrant Italians. No, it was niacin deficiency. Then beriberi. No, that was thiamine deficiency. Let's start putting some stuff back into the white bread over and over and over and over again. HIV does not cause AIDS. Anthony Fauci built his entire career on it. The goal is to blame a virus, build a narrative around that, and then the end result will be mandated vaccinations, control of the individual people's travel, manipulating economies as they see fit. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what you've seen here is the Federal Reserve has been used now with quantitative easing again. You saw it in 2008 and 9, quantitative easing was issued to save the big banks. And now and nothing was done, by the way, with the H1N1. Mm-hmm. And now quantitative easing, which is crack, on steroids, is being used again to basically ensure the biggest transfer of wealth. Nearly $6 trillion through quantitative easing will go, not 2 trillion, but 6, when you actually work out the numbers, to banks. Some of it may trickle down, which is also being stopped, but a large majority of it will go to the stock market. And another set of it will go back to China, which is shoring up dollar reserves, which they will one day use to buy up massive amounts of US assets. That's what they're waiting on. They're waiting for this to bottom out, and watch what happens. Americans will be indentured servants to Chinese money. That's what you'll be renting. You won't own your own homes. That's where this is headed towards. I just talked to my real estate agent. I have a commercial building, and I said, Stephanie, what's going on? She said 30% of restaurants in Boston are going to be shut down. 30%. Out of business, gone. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about an incredible devastation, and perhaps this is to instill civil strife, to instill people to riot. And so you have an opportunity to take out a populist president like Trump, whether you like him or not, and to deny people like me to run for office. We have volunteers who are out there, Josh, collecting signatures. Now we can't even collect. That's why people should go to shivaforsenate.com. And if you scroll down, there's a link there where you can give us your signature if you're a Massachusetts resident. Extremely important. We need another 7,000 signatures in 10 days. They won't allow us to collect when we have an amazing volunteer base. The 3 other scumbag politicians have nothing. 3 lawyers. The GOP establishment is so afraid of me, they started paying for this other guy's signature getting through mail. But we actually collected signatures on the ground. So their goal is to stop us, because they surely do not want someone like me in the United States Senate. Because not only will I be an incredible senator for people, but I will become a symbol of hope for millions and millions of people around this world of, wait a minute, that guy's one of us. He's a fighter. He came from nothing. And look what he can do, and he will fight for us. They do not want that, particularly out of Massachusetts, which is the epicenter of the deep state. It's not Washington, D.C. You can trace probably every economic collapse to some idiot professor at Harvard, okay, through some economic theory. You can look at, this is supposed to be the Mecca of medicine. Both university presidents, MIT and Harvard, took money from Jeffrey Epstein. Both took money even though when he was convicted. They continue taking it. You're looking at really the center of evil is what Massachusetts is. Yeah. So I find it very ironic that I had the chance to go to these universities, learn about them, but I do know their weakness, Josh. These people are extremely insecure people. Right. They do not expect masses of people to rise up and learn, some basic math and science. And that's what the mission here is, in a very humble way, to educate people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're out of time. I just want to mention, because you kind of went into it shortly there, this power grab. We have control of private property, communism. We have central planning, over the top, trillions of dollars being printed, communism. We have forced vaccination, communism, cashless society, communism. We are literally walking into a global fascio-communist state. It's modeled on China. We have the head of the WHO having been one of the leaders of the Ethiopian Communist Party. And this is a guy who's giving us marching orders on what we should do about this virus and how we should submit. And we need people like you.
And by the way, if you actually study Marx, Engels said the worst people were Marxists, okay? Because if you actually study the works of Marx and the works of Adam Smith, what you'll find is you were supposed to smash the state. It was to be to destroy the state. It was to be to eliminate the state. Marxists want to create the state. They want to empower the state as though they're the enlightened few that know better than everyone else. There's a big distinction between the Marxist and, if you actually read the works of Marx, if you actually take time to read it, Marx was about destroying the state. It was supposed to decentralize power to the edges. to everyday working people. It was workers of the world unite. And if you read it carefully, there was supposed to be a revolution to destroy the state. Well, the Chinese Communist Party is all about the state, the state, the state.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're seeing is state imperial fascism, top down. And everyone better wake up, because they're going to wake up one day with being controlled at every level, particularly because of the human body is the last oasis of your freedom. And that's what's taking place.
Yeah.
So the good news is we're at a very pivotal point that we can go into a golden age. If people start recognizing the immune system is quite strong, we have choices that we can make, and we may need to rise up in a good revolution. That's what this may come to, which may be a good necessity.
Yeah, I wanted to just thank you for everything that you've done throughout the years. I know we talked a few years ago about the Federal Reserve, so I'm really glad you brought that up, because I really see the Federal Reserve and vaccines and trying to take control of your body being the two biggest issues that are out there. But real quickly, for people who say, oh, well, he's not a medical doctor, I know you do have companies that are dealing in medicine. Could you guys give a quick background on your medical background?
I'm a biological engineer. What do medical doctors know? What does a medical doctor know? They know nothing. They know nothing about a systems approach to the body. The reason the field of systems biology was created at MIT was because of the failures of the medical doctor. The medical doctor looks at the body as a bunch of parts. You go in, oh, I don't know anything about that. I got to refer you to a cardiologist. Oh, I don't know anything about that. I got to refer you to a neuroendocrinologist. Because medicine is based on the notion you come in and you triage people to these different specialties. That medicine we're talking about is wartime medicine. Wartime medicine, which is where Western medicine originates from, is someone gets shot, you triage them. Okay, he has a lung issue, has a pulmonary, you triage them. That's not the medicine I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't want to be that kind of medical doctor. What I'm talking about, I'm a doctor of biology, of systems biology, which understands the interconnections of things. And that is the future of medicine. The medieval notion of medicine is a guy, and by the way, look, I have cousins in India who ended up becoming doctors. They're one of the most dumbest people I've ever met. Really, really stupid people. Very dumb. You do not want these people ever to touch you, come near you. They basically made it through medical school through just brute force. They're very, very dumb people. A lot of nice medical doctors in the United States, but they are taken advantage by the big pharma. They're basically, you could automate most of these doctors. If then else, if this, give this drug. If this, give this drug. So the issue is, do you want a medical doctor who is pharma-based trying to teach you, or do you want someone who understands the body as a system? It's your choice. If you want to take the former, great. But do not tell me that people should not have the choice to understand the body as a system.
It's always my body, my choice, until it's a choice that the liberals don't want you to make. And then we talked about how words don't have meanings. I mean, so classical liberalism versus today's liberalism, Marxists versus what Marx was doing. I'll have to check into that, because I'll be honest, I wasn't.
If you actually if you go read the first chapter of Das Kapital, Marx talks about very similar notions to classical liberalism. And the end of, if you read it, it was about a decentralized state. It was decentralization. And what they have done, and in fact, Mao was a complete nut job. He basically did revisionism. He was a Marxist.
Installed by the U.S. government, basically.
Yep.
Henry Kissinger.
Yep. And the notion was to centralize power, about the enlightened few. That's what it is, right? The class-conscious enlightened few who know better than everyone else.
Right. Well, thank God for you. I really appreciate your work. I know you're very busy lately, and you're doing really good work. We need people like you out there. I know we've kept you too long, so thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go into overdrive here. See you soon. Hope all is well, and bless you in your journey to awaken the masses.
Yeah, so get it out there, push it out hard, let everyone know we're running, that they need to give us nomination, whatever you need. If you're writing any blog, we need to get 7,000 signatures. People fill it out, we'll mail it to them.
Excellent. ShivaForSenate.com. Thank you, Dr. Shiva.
Thank you. We'll put those links up on the screen right now. So we got Shiva for Senate over here. We've got the systemshealth.com and then vashiva.com. We've throughout this broadcast, we've had all those links down below. So you will
make sure you tell people to go to truthfreedomhealth.com, because people wanted all the videos in one place, and we did that to help people out.
Excellent. Well,
thank you, Dr.
Shiva. Keep up the good work. Bye-bye.
Excellent. Thank you very much, sir. And we're going to keep talking and taking a few questions here from the audience. I apologize if I couldn't get to questions during this. Obviously, Dr. Shiva has a lot to say and has a lot to go into here. And I'm not going to cut him off to say, hey, wait about this. Let's change the subject, because, he has a really good flow that I think we need to be listening to. Peter Birdsall wrote in the comments, today's docs are like bad backyard mechanics. And I think that's a really good way of going about explaining the modern issue of, practicing doctors. I want to go into some of these super chats real quick. Thank you to DT, who sent Canadian $1 in the super chat. Juan Jose Alvarado sent Canadian $5, says, during times of great universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. Good job, Dr. Shiva and Wham. Thank you so much, Juan. Those super chats go a long way. Hit that like button, guys, if you haven't already, and join us at www.iamband.com and join our newsletter for many videos like this. And in the future, we will have a lot more links there for all of you to see. We also got $9.99 from John Hare in the super chat. So thank you so much to you as well, John. I don't know what this currency is, but NOK. We got 100 NOK from Emmett Yo Nam, who put funny pear character flying in the air with a red cape and a smile on his face. They don't actually show the sticker for me. They just show the description of the sticker, which was super weird. But anyway, we got $9.99 from Ryan Sipka, who said, do you think it will be possible to buy your way out of the forced vaccination, maybe having it tied to UBI? Thanks. Keep up the good work. Might be joining you in Mexico soon. Yeah, what do you think, Tim? Are we going to be able to just buy our way out of this situation? I mean, money talks, but power talks a little bit louder than just money alone.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question, Josh. And I will say, for all the people who are on screen, thank you for everybody who is commenting about the audio levels. So, that really does help me out, because him and Shiva were coming on the same channel. So Josh is a lot louder. So I was trying to monitor that in real time. Also, with the new super chat features, something I was testing out last night, but I can't really test it out until we're live. So thank you guys for bearing with us. And obviously, thank you all for the super chats. That helps Josh out tremendously as well. But yeah, can you print your way out of a debt crisis? So we have too much debt, and so we're going to solve having too much debt by getting us more into debt. And so let me zoom out here a little bit, and it says, wrong way, it says King's Ransom. I mean, that is to signify that our money is not our money. And first off, it's not even money, it's currency. So we need to borrow money into existence from our rulers at the Federal Reserve, and then it's money they never had to begin with. And so since that money is based on debt, there's no way to get out of debt by issuing more debt. And so the biggest problem in the world today is the fact, in my opinion at least, and if it's not your opinion, it's probably because you don't know enough on this, but it's the fact that we don't own our own money. So we are basically high-tech slaves right now. And so they said, okay, well, the reason slavery got abolished is because they realized, okay, well, if we just let them walk around a little bit more, let them think that they're free, then we're going to get all this, then they're going to be more productive, have more economic output, and we don't have to feed them or clothe them or bathe them. I mean, I guess now maybe they have to, because of, all the food stamps, and we see all these images coming out of all across the country of like mile-long different, bread lines that are forming. And so,
isn't it genius?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's absolutely no way to, get yourself out of a debt crisis by getting yourself further into debt. Because, I mean, what's going on? I mean, we even had the framers of the Constitution said, if we ever allow a private central bank to issue the currency and credit the nation, first by inflation, then by deflation, we'll end up homeless on the continent our forefathers conquered. So by the Federal Reserve coming in and buying up everything. And so actually, I think I hit somewhere, let me try to pull this up on the screen right now. So this is from Zero Hedge. We've got, here are all the ETFs that would be bought by the Federal Reserve. And so I'm actually looking at this in real time right now. I didn't go over this article ahead of time, but yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous that so he's over here, we see on screen. Let me see if I can blow that up. There we go, right there. So, I mean, we're talking, this is just absolutely ridiculous. So what is going on, and what really, sort of kicked off yesterday, is that the Federal Reserve started buying junk bonds. And so what's a junk bond? So typically you have the highest rated bond is AAA. I think it was AAA, and then there's some minuses in there. It's AAA, AA, A minus, triple B. Triple B is the top of the worst rank of debt. And only if there was somebody that gave a presentation at Acapulco that said the major, basically black swan that's going to be kicked off is this whole corporate debt because when I was in the presentation, I really, if you guys, see me commenting, if you go to my channel, you'll see, or actually Josh, it's up on Wham too. So you guys can watch it right on Wham. And it says, in there, it says that 50% of the investment grade bonds are triple B. And historically between, 30 and 50% of those end up going from triple B down into junk. And then if that were to happen, that would create a cascade of these same ETFs. So let's go back up on screen. So these ETFs over here are basically a lot of these. Actually, these ones are probably, some of these are mandated to buy investment grade. Okay, I guess there's a breakdown. So some of these are investment grades, some of these are high yield or junk. So the investment grade ones, they are obligated to only hold investment grade bonds. And so if all of a sudden you're not investment grade, then you're forced to sell. That begets more and more selling, which then begets even more and more selling. That creates a whole cascade, which is why the Federal Reserve came in to backstop it, which is basically fascism. And who's being bailed out? None of these companies wouldn't be going out of business. The workers all wouldn't be losing their jobs. What would happen? And there was actually a great article on, not that I say great article on CNBC, very often. But there was this guy, this hedge fund manager. I'm talking while trying to pull this up at the same time. And basically, this guy was going on and saying, okay, here we go. We got it right now. Unfortunately, I can't play it because of all the different, censorship that's going on with, fair news type stuff. But we've got, and I can't pronounce the guy's name. It's super difficult. But this is a lie that's been propagated by Wall Street. When a company fails, it does not fire its employees. It goes through a packaged bankruptcy. If anything, what happens is the employees end up owning more of the company. Excuse me, that's not coronavirus. I almost felt like
I was about to call out Dr. Shiva earlier. He coughed a little bit. I'm like, are you sure you want to be doing that? You might get the military at your door these days.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Anyways, going on here. The people who get wiped out here are the people who own the unsecured debt and the equity, but the employees don't get wiped out. And so if a bunch of hedge funds get wiped out, what's the big deal? Let them fail so they don't get summered in the Hamptons. Who cares? And that's, a good point is that, who does care? Because all this entire bailout was having money going to the richest people basically in the world. It would have been cheaper to basically just, probably just subsidize everyone who, just like in 2008, it would have been cheaper just to give everyone who lost a house, just pay off their mortgage than do all the crap. But that was about bailing out AIG. Anyways, that's probably a very long, in-depth answer that went on to 10,000 more things that you didn't ask about. But I didn't talk it all during Shiva, so I had to make up for it.
Yeah, he had to make up for it, and I apologize for that. We had to listen to Shiva more than anything there, and we have a lot of great.
I told you, you're like, I'm not as well read on Shiva. I go, listen, just say like 2 words, and Shiva can just go and take with it. I've
known of him for multiple years. It was just I didn't know a lot about him until the last few weeks. It really just I got sideswiped by just the knowledge that he was bringing forward, and it's just I really appreciate people, especially at his stature, doing what he's doing because he's taking a huge risk as far as his career goes. Rainy Steps sent $2.79 Canadian in the super chat. Great show, guys. She says, thank you so much. I always appreciate that. Mickey sent NOK 100. Is that Norwegian kroners? I think it's Norwegian kroners, 100 Norwegian kroners. What does Dr. Shiva think about the fact that COVID-19 is identical to a human exosome? So I apologize for not being able to get to him with that question. He said 40 minutes. We kept him on for 48 minutes. So I had to speed that up and get to promoting what he's doing. This is why we're definitely going to have to call him and get him back on. One of his assistants reached out to me as a matter of fact the other day and said, hey, I was literally about to reach out to him and be like, we need Shiva on the show
I was just saying, I'm like, I've got his info. Let's go give him a call. And then he goes and calls us. So it's kind of crazy
it was great. And he's been making the rounds like crazy lately, and I can't imagine how busy he is. He's one of the most in-demand doctors in the world. And I think more people right now would prefer talking to him than Fauci for sure. Let's see, we got London Carr sent $5 in the super chat and said, thank you all for your hard work on this channel. Well, thank you so much. Always appreciate all those out there that are appreciative of what we're doing here. We're just trying to get the truth out, and it's becoming more and more difficult as YouTube muzzles us. But nonetheless, you guys are keeping us alive with those super chats, and I really, truly cannot thank you enough. It means a great deal to me to be able to take that in, especially since everyone's going to be monetized. And right now, talking about this subject is suicide. It's absolute suicide, and it's only a matter of probably weeks before they just completely shut down the $5 left that we can get a month, or perhaps like shut down the super chats, which it's a very real possibility soon. Tinkerbell sent £3 in the super chat as well. Thank you so much, Tinkerbell. I really appreciate the support. And look, people can help out by checking the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar. All of that helps keep independent media alive so we can bring you this information all the time. On top of that, we obviously have iamband.com. That's www.iamband.com. And if you love what Dr. Shiva is doing, you should definitely check the links in the description. The Streamlabs link kind of cut into it a bit, but we still have it down the line there. It says www.shivaforsenate.com. And I really highly recommend everyone go and check that website out, as well as all the other things that we have linked and mentioned. He mentioned in this broadcast, one of the things that he was going into at the end, honestly, I could talk with him for 5 hours. I mean, very interesting. I had so many things in my head that I knew I didn't have time for.
And we only just scratched the surface of what he's capable of talking about. I mean, there's so many things that he can talk. I mean, we didn't even get into the fact that he was running against Elizabeth Warren and that his whole campaign was he was the real Indian and only the real Indian can defeat the fake Indian, and what Cambridge was doing against him in the town.
He's like the ultimate troll, but in like the best possible way. Not like a Luke Rudowski troll, but like a troll that like is helping humanity learn about different things. Oh wait, that was just a big insult.
No, and I need to go, and I actually need to randomly go to the restroom. So luckily, Josh is another person who's good at talking. So hopefully you got that.
All right, let's talk.
Okay.
Well, you go to the bathroom. We'll time it. Anyway, so for those that are interested, send in those super chats and hit that like button if you haven't already. We got almost about 600 people watching live today on a channel with about 140,000 subscribers, which is really good to see. Anyway, I think Tim is switching it over so that I'm full screen. All right, so one of the things that I really wanted to talk more with him about was just the economic devastation that this is causing. I mean, honestly, the level of devastation we're witnessing among, global banking systems. We're seeing Deutsche Bank fall. We're seeing Wells Fargo fall about 34% in 1 week, which is absolutely insane. We are witnessing the end of the US dollar. We're witnessing the biggest collapse in the history of the stock market. We're seeing not a recession. A recession never ended in 2008. It was papered over for all these years, which we tried to tell people about for years, alongside telling people to get prepared. Most people didn't listen. Many of you did. Thank God for you guys. But going forward from that, we witnessed the absolute, collapse of the stock market, that on top of the recession with 0% to negative interest rates, and we're seeing that globally as well. It's a global catastrophe. What we end up having is the greatest global depression that we've ever seen in history, bar none. And if that doesn't concern you, I don't know what does. At this point, it's not fear-mongering. We're in the midst of it. It's not on our doorstep. It's in our house. And it's essentially lighting the curtains on fire. And so many people are laying back going, stay at home. It's all good. Don't worry about it. They got it handled. The people that probably bioengineered this disease in the first place, or this virus, have got it handled. That is what drives me the most crazy about this, is that still people are laying back and doing nothing. By the way, if you're new to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We will see it on the screen when you press subscribe. So I hope you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you haven't already. We appreciate everyone tuning in. I'm going to reach out to David Icke this week. We've interviewed him before. I know he's really in demand right now. And obviously what happened with London Real, he went on London Real to talk about the coronavirus. I don't agree with everything he said there, but nonetheless, the fact that they just shut down that interview, YouTube deleted the show. I mean, this was one of the most viewed live streams of all time on YouTube. And it was just shut down just like that. And it really goes to show who's in charge here. And it's not us, but it should be us. And you should take domain of your own life and be in charge. Rainey steps in another $2.79 Canadian in the super chat and says, "This is from Elizabeth." Thank you so much. Thank you, Elizabeth. Really appreciate that. Anyway, Tim, you're back. We timed you. It didn't take long. That's good. It gives us all the connotations we need. So you're eating. So I'm just going to keep talking.
Well, and we probably do only have until about 30 after, because I do have some client meetings I've got to get to and do some real work. But the way that I'm able to fund taking some time off right now is because we have been getting some clients from WIM, so I definitely appreciate all of that. And you're probably like, oh, why would I want to go, invest with Tim? He's here, with Josh eating a granola bar right now. He should be, watching the market. But I have a portfolio manager who's one of the, he's like seventh, ranked guy in America according to Investopedia, and we've got other advisors who are now underneath us. And I don't think there's been another person that had a better performance. But anyways, that is another way that's helped fund what we're doing. Because if we weren't, basically this cost me a lot of money doing all this stuff. It didn't.
Mickey says, the Liberty Advisor, you got to stop eating live. Yeah, it's like he's a triathlete, right? Got to eat, got to get the protein.
The thing is, I went right. I mean, I've been basically here because I filmed 2 videos with Luke Rudowski, had another client meeting right before that, went preparing for this, had to get all those graphics. So everything you see down there, I was doing that. A lot of it, I was making some edits in real time, which, I'm just teaching myself all this stuff. So you could be doing this too. So, I mean, if you guys are home, or maybe if somebody is an expert at OBS Streamlabs and they want to hit us up.
Perfect time.
If they want to hit us up and let us know.
Quarantine.
Yeah, for some reason it wasn't going out to Float, so I'll have to check out, see what's going on there. Last night at work.
Yeah, there's issues there. But by the way, if you haven't already, join us at float.app. That's flote.app. I'm at Josh Sigurdsson as well as at Wham, and Tim is at the Liberty Advisor. And you can become a client of Tim Picciott below at www.thelibertyadvisor.com. I really recommend everyone does that. Ha 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 ha, or ja 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 ja, depending on which part of the world you're in. Send $2 Australian in the super chat. Says, love your work, Josh. Thank you so much. And honestly, Tim has been slaving away lately at this to try and get this all up to speed. So big shout out to Tim for all the hard work that he's doing there. And by the way, Tim, is that Trump gun loaded?
Is it loaded? I don't know. We blew our wad the other day with all these, junk bond purchases. But let's see. Oh, there we go.
Oh.
It's a big, I've got another stack of money where that came from too. And now my daughters, I bought them their own. It was a golden one. It wasn't a Trump gun. But now my 3 and 4-year-old are running around shooting each other with fake money.
And by the way, I missed some of the super chats because for some reason in the super chat thing on YouTube it hit a bunch of them, but I can see them now. John Snyson, the Economic Truth, sent Canadian $5.49 in the super chat. Thank you so much, John, as always. Hope to get you on here again soon, talking about these things in one of these shows. The problem is Tim has to go right away.
Well,
so,
somebody commented.
Today,
somebody commented about Daniel DiMartino Booth says that Trump now controls the Federal Reserve. I did an entire video on this. I did one with Chris Karabats that went over really well. And on that video, and we also, I think on last Sunday's live stream, we discussed this as well. Trump is not controlling the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, what they do is their only product is debt. They print more and more debt that then gets us further into bondage. And now I don't see how they've all of a sudden been, somehow muzzled by gaining even more power and and owning even more things, if anything. And so everyone that's promoting that agenda, I don't know a ton. I'm not an expert on Daniel DiMartino Booth. We could probably get her on because I know my business partner Kirk.
So I've talked with her. So I went to get her on when her book came out a couple years ago, about a year and a half ago on the Fed, and I was really interested in it. But she's much more of a Stephen Moore type. It never ended up working out, but she's much more of a Stephen Moore type Fed critic, where she's against a lot of what the Fed does, and rightly so, but then still supports central banks, and it's an issue. But yeah, we could always get her on and debate her. I just hate ambushing people because we got 2 versus 1 here. By the way, at the top of this live stream, we had 649 people watching live, which is a record over the last few weeks. So I really appreciate everyone that's tuned in today. We still have 445 people watching, and a big shout out to Norman Magana, who sent $10 in the super chat earlier. And again, I missed it because YouTube's covering up the latest super chats for some reason. But if I catch it as it happens, I still see it. I really appreciate all of you guys helping out. It's literally what keeps Wham up and running. It's the only thing that keeps Wham up and running. And right now we're dealing with the biggest shadow banning we've ever seen before. And I said that last month, and it was true then. And I said that a year ago, and it was true then. It's just constantly getting worse.
And with you having the balls
to survive this virus.
And with you having the balls to put out content like this and have COVID in the title, I mean, basically, it's to some degree, somewhat asking for it. But a lot of people are too afraid to, put this type of content out there or have COVID in the title or coronavirus or say things like you say. So it's more important to help support Wham. And those super chats do go to Josh, so it's not going. it's not going to me. So when I'm saying, hey, with the super chats, it's not to, self-serving for myself. Becoming a client of mine, that's self-serving for myself. But you know what? All the new money we're making,
but also self-serving for you too.
Yeah, well, no, but what's going on with that is, we just hired a new guy who literally is getting paid more than me, and like every new dollar that's coming in is going investing and getting more staff, making things getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Because
right, but what I mean is that people that sign up as clients, it's self-serving for them too, because they are helping to protect their money.
Oh, you would have only had like probably the best investment performance of any financial advisor in the world the past 2 years. So, sorry, not sorry, I guess with that one. But yeah, no, it's, but if you lost a bunch of money though, it's not, you think the same people that lost you a bunch of money are then magically going to know what to do to flip around and, make you more on the way back up, which eventually on a long enough time horizon, it's going to go up because the Feds, I got the money gun loaded again, but yeah, the money gun's going to keep getting reloaded. And I'm talking about the Fed's money gun. And eventually it's going to make some assets go way up. It's the hedge funds getting bailed out, private equity, the family offices, the billionaires, the guys worth tens of millions of dollars. They're the ones getting bailed out during all this. While we get, okay, great, you get $3,000, Mr. and Mrs. Smiths, with your family of 4. But meanwhile, we're going to put 60 grand of debt on you. It doesn't take a financial advisor.
I'm kind of off track here, but I'm just thinking right now, because Dr. Shiva had so much to say on the show today, and there's so little time to really get into it. Like, he's the kind of person you want to talk to for like 5 days in a row, just nonstop, and get all that information out of him, because he's a wealth of information. I was just thinking how funny it would be if we had a live show that was only 30 minutes long, and we had him, Ernest Hancock, and Lord Moncton and myself on it. Just if you ever watched anyone's interviews with Lord Christopher Moncton,
well, I'm pretty bad too.
You'll ask him I asked him one question once, and it went 1 hour long. It was 1 hour of him talking, and I was sitting there going. And then he's like, well, are you going to ask me a question? I'm like, dude, I can't.
I think that was me. Like when I was on the Bad Crypto podcast, I could tell they didn't really, and I love those guys, but I could tell they didn't really know anything about what I was up to. And so I pretty much, I think they asked one thing, and I pretty much just, went on for like an hour, like monologue, because Which is good, because a lot of us that are interviewers, it's not always the case that we actually know a lot about the person we're interviewing. And I've been in situations, I didn't know exactly who Jim Bell was the first time I interviewed him, and Jim Bell was a legend. But anyway, I had one of the first interviews with him after he got out of prison after like 15 or 20 years. And I didn't know who he was. He asked me if I wanted to interview him. I'm like, okay, which I usually can't stand it when people ask me to interview them. I hate that. I really hate that. It usually means I won't. So just heads up out there. I know Joe Rogan's similar in that sense. It's I asked, I guess the secret for me is I actually asked to interview you, but then you almost died the day before from, getting poisoned in Vegas. Maybe that was me. I don't know. But no. So I guess the trick is to ask to interview you. And then I actually have never actually interviewed you. And now you've just been interviewing me. So I guess that's the secret. So.
Yeah, I guess that's a secret. And now, yeah, member of Wham. Well, and that's a funny thing though, is that we were talking about, like Jim Bell, I get him on the beginning of the interview. You can notice you can notice that the first 5 minutes of the interview, I had no idea what to say. I'm like, you're involved in some legal stuff, eh? I'm like, I'm not a legal guy. So I know a lot of the stuff that, contract law and, freedom, what do you call it? The freemen of the land and all that kind of stuff. I spent a lot of time when I was younger with Dean Clifford and people like that. But still, I'm like, my mind's exploding. I'm like, I don't know what to say. So I'm like, so talk about what you're up to, which I never do in a video. And it worked out really well at the end of the day. But anyway, we got a lot of people commenting here. We got, let's see. Magic Monkey Love says, just like in They Live. We're seeing a lot of stuff from They Live right now. Put on your sunglasses, my friends, and see that reality in front of you. You got cops looking in your shopping carts to see if you got essential items, which don't include seeds and things that are self-sustainable. You have police in the streets, military in the streets. They're telling you to stay home. Everyone's repeating after them and staying in their home while they talk about UBI and paying your rent, which means that they own your property, while pushing a cashless technocratic superstate. And on top of that, forcing vaccines, which are talking about now. You won't be able to travel anywhere in the world without vaccines. Well, if that's the case, I'm boycotting the United States. Once I get my stuff out of there, I'm boycotting them, because I am not going to be forced vaccinated, and I really don't want to fight to the death. But it'll happen. A lot of people are going to end up, fighting to the death. You can only imagine how this is going to affect the huge
And I've got it on the screen right now where it says Dr. Anthony Fauci, and this is red linked on Drudge. Americans could eventually carry certificates of immunity to coronavirus. And just so you guys know, I am editing this stuff in live time. Unfortunately, there's no way of like testing super chat stuff without when you're actually live. But thanks for bearing with us. I think it's going to probably add to the show. We're going to keep making it better. I just taught myself.
We're growing all the time. For a while, I was actually telling Tim just keep it as simple and like just Zoom call and look.
Do I ever keep anything simple? I mean, come on.
Well, for me, it was that I was just worried that things would go wrong because whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And usually after I say something like that, we see the stream go down. But I was glad to see that Dr. Shiva brought up Jeffrey Epstein. What do you think of the interview that we just witnessed with Dr. Shiva, Tim?
Well, I've heard a lot of his interview, not super recently, but I know the guy is absolute fire. I mean, I like everything he has to say. I mean, I talked with him. I subjected myself to go to a Sheriff Joe event about 3 years ago, just for the express purpose of wanting to talk to Shiva. And so Shiva were at like this Wild West saloon at this like rodeo thing when it's probably 105 degrees out, and we're just talking about the Fed. And I was breaking down the Federal Reserve and really red pilling him a lot on the Fed. So I mean that was pretty cool to see him coming here talking bringing the Federal Reserve up, bringing some of the vaccine issues up.
Yeah, I saw you on the camera there. The second he mentioned the Federal Reserve, you're like, scooting forward, huh? What does he say?
Yeah, because I knew that you were chomping at the bit to get something out, and that I wasn't going to be able to say anything. So but then I threw it back to him in terms of his medical company and because I know there were some pharmacists watching this that I know personally, and some of them that work with me that were watching this. I know they're going to say, oh, well, he's not a medical doctor, so I wanted to ask the hard question out there. Not that I don't believe him,
mention,
but,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have mentioned, I wanted to bring up proton mail to him and ask him about proton mail, but there's certain things you just can't do in time constraints. While I was watching it live on the screen, I saw a couple questions come in literally at the end. We didn't get any questions for most of the video in Super Chat, so I wasn't able to bring him forward. But at the very end, I saw he said about 40 minutes and we hit 41 minutes, and I'm like getting nervous as hell. I'm like, man, I hate being that guy that holds someone too long, because he's been on like 20 news shows a day, guys. He's just everywhere. I think he's going on Fox News shortly. He was on Next News Network yesterday. He's been on Alex Jones, Tinfoil Hat a bunch of times. I mean, he's everywhere right now. And I think he'll probably end up on London Real and things like that as well. But I mean, you got to remember, Dr. Shiva invented email. He has a Smithsonian patent for email.
We barely even got into that because the guy's got so many things going on. So barely even got into that.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though. I mean, it's cool, but that was, 40 years ago. For me, I think the most important is to focus on what he's currently what's currently in the news. So I've been focusing on that. Same reason I didn't bring up Elizabeth Warren and stuff like that, because that was in the past. And right now we have a lot of crazy stuff happening in the future.
Well, I guess he's going to be running against her right now, which would be the future, but he's got to get enough signatures.
Is it the same? Is it the same riding?
The same what? Let me let's see.
That's a Canadian term. Riding district.
I have no idea what you're talking about. So yeah, no, he's I believe it's Senate, Massachusetts. Let's see, blah 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 blah.
District what?
Well, I don't know if it's his district. He was running for Senate, so the senator from Massachusetts.
But there's multiple senators from Massachusetts. It's not just I mean, it's not like he's a governor.
There's two. So there's state senators, and then there's the federal senator. So he's running for a federal senator, which was two. So I don't know. So he's probably not running against Warren because Warren was last time. So I guess they stagger it. So I guess technically it would be the other stooge that's probably in there. Just assuming it's a stooge. I mean, there's probably a 99.999% chance that's the case. I don't know. Somebody want to look it up in the comments? Who's we've only got a couple
By the way,
minutes.
we have a comment from, let's see, Saifullah Khan, who said Dr. Bruce Lipton is an immunologist. Okay, well, I'll definitely look into them. Thanks for the advice on anyone that we could talk about. They said Dr. Andrew Kaufman also exposed this COVID hysteria. Now, look, I believe COVID exists. I believe that it's a thing. I believe it was weaponized. I believe it was spread. I believe it's being utilized to create order out of chaos. I believe they're undercutting the numbers in China. I believe they're exaggerating the numbers in the United States. Right now, New York has more cases than any country in the world, which is insane. And I know people are dying from it, and I know it's dangerous, and I know it has a bigger death rate than the household flu, and hasn't had had time to elapse as much as that. With that said, it's been engineered. It is man-made. It is being utilized, and it's not black and white. It's either real or it's not.
And
it's real, but it's being utilized, exaggerated, and they're telling people to basically destroy their own immune system by staying in their house. Don't take the vitamins because that's all BS. There's no evidence of it. It's all whack job conspiracy theories that it's vitamin C that helps. It's like, it's insane. So what I think is this is one of the biggest conspiracies of all time. I'm not denying that it exists. I just believe that they're exaggerating it and then undercutting the actual numbers in China to prop up countries and make them lead to a massive power shift for full global technocracy.
Yeah, and I was able to pull this up. So we look on screen, we see from Wikipedia, we've got Democratic primary. So Ed Markey is the current U.S. Senator there. He's being primaried by Joe Kennedy III. And then we go down here to the Republican side and shows that Shiva is up here along with Kevin O'Connor, who I'm sure is the guy they're funding to try to, make sure Shiva doesn't even have a platform. Because it's even not about winning. It's about, if you have a platform, you're able to use the boy pulpit to help change, what public opinion is. Everything is basically based on public opinion. Public opinion is more important than anything. But we've only got about 1 minute, Josh, because I've got to go prep for
1 minute. All right. Well, everyone. Meetings. Absolutely. And obviously he's busy with lots of clients and working hard there. So I appreciate
look at the newest comment. Has Josh had Dr. Judy Mikovits on? So we can go get Dr. Judy Mikovits on.
We're not going to go into the backstory there, but yes, we will get her on. Absolutely. Now, I'm risking my channel by talking about this stuff, and it's the truth though, and I'm passionate about the truth, and I will go down. I would rather die standing than on my knees. So guys, help us out anyway. Pledge to our Patreon. Join us on Float. Join us on the alternative. Seriously, we need you now more than ever, guys. Join us on float.app. And I really appreciate the super chats. Go to GoFundMe, Patreon, subscribe star. Just $1 a month keeps us up and running so that we can bring you this truth, even when we have a gun to our head telling us that we can't. This is why I'm in Mexico. This is why I'm trying to live free, be responsible here. And also, Tim's about to shoot us with Trump money.
No, he said yes, he had a gun to your head, but unfortunately, I didn't have the dual mode. So
a helicopter money gun. But anyway, I mean, I really appreciate everyone that hit the like button on this video. Share it on social media because we are facing massive shadow banning and we can barely reach anybody. And honestly, we cannot do it without you. So thank you, everyone. Check those links below. Join us everywhere. You can donate in cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dash, Bitcoin Cash, and everything. And of course, find Tim Picciott at thelibertyadvisor.com as well as on his channel. You want to give a plug before we go away here, Tim?
Yeah, guys, go to the Liberty Advisor channel. You guys can Tim Picciott. Probably the Liberty Advisor is easier to write in there. And on there, there's an interview I did with my portfolio manager, Kirk Chisholm, that I highly recommend. Kirk and I were both in cash in 2007. We both were able to probably ride out this better than anybody probably in the country, more or less. And, we were only down 5% at the worst this year. I mean, how many people can say that? So if you like what we did last year, where we made almost all the gains, we went up 25% last year. We only went down 5 this year. You want to see how we did that? We've got that underneath. You guys go down. It's under like one of the most popular videos. Also, the Anarcho speech. Highly recommend it. But that's how we fund itself, because as we get more things going, then we got other people to help us out in the background. We've got all these other tools that we're because it costs money to run this stuff, and really the amount of money it costs is actually more than Josh is even making on here, and I'm helping subsidize that in terms of all this different stuff that's going on. So that really helps out a lot, and that's how I'm able to justify doing this. But I've always been spreading the truth, and thank you, Josh, for everything.
And I really appreciate you always being with us and helping us with this. And again, someone mentioned be on BitChute. We are on BitChute. It just takes sometimes 6 to 8 days for a video to process, so I don't post there that often, but you can subscribe there. Subscribe to my Josh Sigurdsson account on YouTube as well as Whamcast on YouTube. Anything helps, guys. Check those links below. Until next time, we'll see you guys soon. This is Josh Sigurdsson and Tim Picciott signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.